Hey guys, welcome to my first drive video on camera with my brand new M3 Touring in individual British racing green. I wanted to start by saying a big thanks to everyone who's watched the collection video. It's going really well. And also a big thanks to those of you that were honest enough to admit that you believed the Tony Lewis nano paint idea. I've actually had this car for exactly a month now and covered roughly 600 miles. So I'm halfway to its initial running in service, which takes place around the 1200 mile mark. And since collection, I took it down to Swift Performance and had some Michelin Pilot Alpine 5 winter tyres fitted to the car. Michelin actually sent me these winter tyres at the back end of last year, and the plan was to take the grey M3 Touring out to the Alps in January. But as many of you might know, January and much of February, well, I haven't been particularly well, and it just meant I couldn't do that trip. So I was dying to get them on this car before our winter disappears. But thankfully, we've had a bit of a cold spell. And as many of you might already know, just because these are winter tyres, it doesn't mean snow and ice. It means cold conditions. Michelin say anything below 7 degrees Celsius, a winter tyre should outperform a summer tyre. And today, as you can probably see by the way I'm dressed up, it is 3 degrees and there's a bitterly breeze in the air. So I don't want to spend too much more time out here when I've got a nice heated seat and steering wheel in the car. The first month of owning a new car is all about familiarization. I am very fortunate to have owned a lot of new cars over the past 10 years or so, especially when you take into account my 7 Series from the chauffeuring days, etc. And although on the face of it, it was a simple M3 Touring to M3 Touring swap, albeit different colours on the outside, I always find that although they're meant to be exactly the same car, they always feel slightly different. And when you factor in this car has more options, it has the ultimate pack, because although I don't necessarily need the ultimate pack, this was a cancelled order. I have tried ultimate pack cars before in the shape of press cars, but I've never owned one because it's a very expensive option. As part of that ultimate package, you get the driver assistant professional option, which basically gives you a form of autonomous driving. So along with your traditional cruise control, which is now a guided cruise control in this car, you can also switch over to assisted driving. So providing the road markings are pretty good, on a road like this I probably wouldn't advise it, but motorways etc, it'll work no problem. It means you can activate it and then essentially let go of the wheel. It will keep you in lane, it will keep you at the speed that you want the car to go at, and it will keep you at a safe distance from any traffic ahead. So if there's traffic ahead that's slowing down, it will slow you down. If you're in stop-start traffic, like in London for instance, it's really handy because it will bring you to a complete stop and then it will pull you away again and keep up with the really slow moving traffic. The other option that's worth talking about, we've already mentioned it on the outside, is the heated steering wheel option. Again, it's not something that I've ever ticked or ever wanted in my cars, but whenever I have a press car that has a heated steering wheel, especially this time of year, you turn it on and you really appreciate it. In some ways, it's more comforting and nicer than a heated seat. I know that sounds crazy, but sometimes a heated seat is too much, you end up turning it off, whereas the heated steering wheel, I just love it during the winter months. Outside, I talked about running this car in, and although the majority of manufacturers these days probably suggest that you should run in your brand new car regardless of what it is, with modern M cars you have to run them in. At 1200 miles or thereabouts, you have what's called a running in service. It is another expense to bear in mind when you are buying or looking at buying a new M car, and those prices vary massively from dealership to dealership. But what that means is the first 1200 miles you have to be nice and gentle with the car, especially the first 100 or 200 miles, and then build that up and build that up. I'm at nearly 600 miles, so I'll rev this out to 4,500 RPM, maybe even 5,000 RPM without worrying about it too much. But it's not just about the rev range, it's about how much throttle you give the car, how much load you put the engine under. Try not to load it completely up until it's had its run-in service. What do they do in the run-in service? Well, essentially they change the engine oil, which is a specific run-in engine oil, and they replace and change the diff oil, which once again is a special run-in oil. So do adhere to that and make sure you get that run-in service done, because whether it's your car or finance car, if you don't do it at or around that 1200 mile mark, you can invalidate your warranty and the residuals of your car might go down the drain. Due to the process of that run-in, picking up an M car in January or February, in the UK at least, isn't a bad time to do it, because by the time you have run it in, you'll be looking at spring, and then it'll be fully ready for the summer months. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun during the winter months, especially, as I've done, fitted the car with some high performance winter tyres. Now these Michelin Pilot Alpine 5 tyres are absolutely incredible. I was lucky enough to experience them in Finland at the beginning of last year in snowy Nordic weather, which we don't necessarily get over here, and I experienced them right at the end of last year in that X5M out in Austria, once again in thick snow, but also in very mild weather just outside of Munich, mild dry weather in fact. And what I was really impressed with, more so than their, let's say, winter grip in snowy conditions, because I already know that these tyres are good in that, I was really impressed with how good they felt when the weather got a bit warmer. It was about 10 or 11 degrees, which is not conditions that you would associate with a winter tyre, but they still felt really supported. And although there is ultimately less grip at this time of year on winter tyres, on dry or slippery tarmac compared to summer tyres in the middle of summer, what is important to me is how progressive that grip level is. And when it does drop away, I don't want the car to snap like it would do on the majority of summer tyres. And that's because summer tyres, when the conditions outside are really cold, well, the rubber sometimes doesn't get up to that optimum operating temperature, and therefore it's quite hard, and that gives you a bit of a snappy feeling car. Whereas with these, from the second I left the house this morning when it was 1 degrees and there was no temperature in the tyres whatsoever, because they're a winter compound, the rubber is already soft and, let's say, in its operating window, and it just gives you reliable grip all of the time, which is really, really nice, regardless of whether you're running, you know, a small little hatchback with 100 horsepower, or if you're in an M3 Touring with over 500 horsepower. It gives you that stability, it gives you that reliable grip, and it allows you to have fun on a road like this one, which at this time of the year usually is quite sketchy at the best of times. Something else you tend to get with winter tyres is a slightly better ride, and that's because the actual tread and the compound is slightly softer, as we've already talked about. So that's always a bonus in the UK. And the last thing to talk about is what I would describe as wheel hop. Now, you might have experienced it, because I do get a lot of messages about this with people concerned. Modern stiff sports cars like the M3 with an X-drive system or four-wheel drive system, when you get in them in the morning and and they're clad with their summer tyres, and it's cold like it was this morning, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 degrees, and you're turning the car around out your driveway or whatever it might be, you feel almost like a juddering sound. And that's because the tyres, the summer tyres, are so cold that one of the tyres is juddering across the surface or hopping across the surface. It's nothing to be concerned about, but it is your tyres telling you that they're very cold and they maybe don't have the grip that they should have. You don't get that with winter tyres. Before I start pushing on a bit and talk about how this car feels dynamically fitted with the winter tyres, I just wanted to tell you about a live Drive Talk podcast show that we're doing at Bury BMW in Heathrow on Friday the 15th of March. Tickets and numbers are limited and there's only about 15 left as I record this, but I'll put a link in the description below, so head over and see if there is something available. If you miss out on Friday the 15th of March, we're going to do plenty more this year, so I suggest that you subscribe to our Drive Talk podcast, or you follow us on any of the major podcast platforms and keep an eye and ear out for any other live shows that are coming up, because it just should be a really exciting and fun evening where you guys, the audience, can ask us as many questions and topics as you like. So make sure you do check out that link, and make sure you do head over to the Drive Talk podcast YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. Now let's push on a little bit and tell you how the car feels dynamically with these winter tyres. It's 4.5 degrees outside, and although the tarmac looks dry up here, when we hit these twisties, it is not dry. It is damp and it is really slimy. I've got all the traction control etc switched off. This bit here with summer tyres is so sketchy and so slippery, and although I could still feel that grip level drop away as I hit that patch of tarmac, it was really predictable. The car didn't suddenly feel like it was just gonna let go, or the tyres didn't feel like they're gonna let go. This M car, as I've talked about so many times, doesn't have the best steering feel in the world. I could feel the tyres slowly running out of grip, and that's exactly what you want in any tyre, but especially a winter tyre, because conditions are very mixed. One minute you've got a bone dry warm patch of tarmac that's in the sun, next minute you dip down into a really cold bend like we just did there. It could be black ice or any kind of slippery surface under the trees, so a bit of sap etc, and you've got 10% of the grip that you did have literally 10 meters beforehand. And I think winter tyres manage to bridge that gap so well. They make everything feel relatively consistent, and they definitely maximize the grip levels when they're at their very lowest, like they were back there. I was going to end the video here, but I've just had a call from Jack at Royal Steering Wheels to say that my newly trimmed wheel is ready to go and get fitted. So I'll bring you along for that, because there's no point in me delaying it further, and then this car will be complete. Because those of you that watch my collection video, you'll know that I took this car to Swift Performance before it was registered and on the road, so it got trucked up there, and all of the previous bits that were on my grey M3 Touring were swapped over to this car. The only thing we couldn't swap was the steering wheel, and that's because this new wheel has some new functions that we've just talked about as part of the ultimate package, whereas the old wheel didn't have that. So I left the old wheel in the previous M3, and I'm getting something a little bit different done for this car. So I'll see you down at Royal Steering Wheels. fast forward a couple of hours and I'm now down here at Royal Steering Wheels in Aylesbury, and Jack has just fitted my new wheel. It looks absolutely stunning. I love it. I've gone for a slightly different approach this time. Alcantara, which is something I go with regularly with all my Royal steering wheels over the years, but I've decided not to go for the racing strip at the top. I don't think I'm taking this car near a track, and I just wanted it to be as subtle as possible. But I've taken the M stitching away that comes standard on all M car wheels, and Jack has used British Racing green stitching, which is just gorgeous, and I'm sure that's really going to pop when I give this car a clean next week. But it's all come together so well. Obviously all of the functions still work. This is a BMW wheel. The heating element is still in there. We've just been testing all that, and another really important thing to me is he's managed to remove some of the padding from the actual rim, so the rim is not as girthy anymore. The thinner the rim, the more feel you get, and as we all know, modern M cars don't have the most steering feel in the world. So now this car is kind of complete. I'm not going to go any further with mods or changing things because, you know, it's my daily, it's something I use for everything, and I don't want to start compromising stuff for the sake of it or for the sake of content. But this is something that I definitely wanted, and a Royal steering wheel is something I've always had in all my cars over the past 6 or 7 years. Absolutely love it. Guys, on that note, thanks so much for tuning in and watching this video. I'll see you at another one very soon. Cheers.